Okay, guys, MUI so far is driving me nuts. I have started to learn it, but like customizing MUI components is very difficult. So I'm just trying to create a video of a practical example so that I remember it better and it actually stays as a video so that I can look at it later, because I'm sure I'll forget all this in 2 days. So I'm working with a RadioGroup component over here, which I copied from MUI documentation. And as you can see, we are rendering 3 radio buttons with 3 options. Now, what if I actually want to style this label differently? I want a different color, maybe different font family, or maybe font size. So the first thing that I need to do is to highlight the text and inspect it. I want to understand what DOM element I'm trying to target, because this DOM element will have some specific styles that I'm trying to change. So as we can see, the DOM element I'm looking at is a span, right? Great. Now it looks like it has a bunch of styles. Which one of them am I supposed to target exactly? Well, it turned out, and I actually tried it, you can target any of these classes. Literally, you can add a new property or override a property on any of these classes and they will apply. Even this gibberish one, CSS-RIZT or whatever it is. But I would choose the one that is called MUI form control label dash label, just because it is semantic and it actually I think fits very well this subcomponent of the RadioGroup component, which is called form control label. So that later, when in 5 days I come to this code, I will look at that selector in this class that I have changed, and I will actually understand that, oh, the class that I'm changing, MUI form control label dash label, is a class for changing this form control label component styles, right? So great. So we know 2 pieces of the puzzle: the DOM element and the class that we are trying to change. Now what? So we can't exactly, like, the thing is, we need to understand how exactly we can change it, right? And we can't exactly access it right here. We don't see the span here. It's hidden somewhere in the structure of this form control label, right? So we need to understand how to have access to it. From where? Like, first thing first, the way how you style in MUI is different if the class that you are targeting is located on the root component versus if it is located on a nested component. Now, I was really confused about this concept of root versus nested, because first time when I looked at this, I was like, okay, MUI form control label dash label. Then I tried to look for this class on some other components up the stream, up the DOM tree, didn't find anything. I was like, okay, this is the class which is like unique to the span, so maybe the span is the root component. No, that was very, very wrong. So it turned out that in terms of the MUI components context, root is a very outer container for the component. Everything else is nested. So for example, if we create this new component over here, right, and we will return a div, and inside the div we will add a bajillion elements, right? So the div is what will be our root component, and everything else will be nested. Well, so far so good. Now, just to understand it better. So I know that the span is nested, right? Because I can't have direct access to it, and it also doesn't have any children, right? And well, I'm looking up the DOM tree over here. I can see a label, and it's child of label, correct? But maybe the root component is label, or maybe it's div, which is here. I was really confused about this root concept. So, well, okay, div or label. Let's vote. So what I did, I just went to this form control label to one of them and I uncommented it. So what happened is now I have two labels, right? There used to be three. Now I have two labels, but I still have div. That means that div is not a part of the form control label, but rather it is a part of some other structure higher up the hierarchy. So the conclusion here is the root element of the span is this label. So span is a subcomponent and label is a root element for form control label component. Great. That means I can access, I can customize the styles that I chose by accessing this span via this root element. So how do I do that? Well, in MUI, it turned out that in MUI there are several ways how you can pass new styles to a nested component. And sometimes it is done by using specific type of props, which you can find in documentation. It's kind of a shortcut, supposedly. Even though for me, as I'm learning right now, it sounds really complicated. Another way, if there is no shortcut, then we are just utilizing the SX prop in order to pass styles. So the first thing we need to do is to go and check whether this root element form control label has one of those two shortcuts. Okay, and the shortcut usually it has a naming convention, right? So, and the naming convention of it is there will be component name props, right? So something like, let's see if the component name was paper, then paper props will be the name of the prop, right? Another one is also called component name component. So for example, if it was a paper component, that would be called paper component. So I will not be explaining what exactly these two do, but I just want to check for now if they exist or not in our documentation, right? Anything that looks like this. So basically the child component name props, child component name component. I'm going to docs to the component API and I'm going to, oh my god, I forgot the name of it. So this is form control label. Form control label over here. Okay, and we have props section. So I'm looking at anything that would look like it. So here is one, but it is not starting from the capital letter, and this is just like, I honestly don't know what it is doing, but this is not what we are looking for. That's for sure, because I don't know, it's not a span props, for example. So as long as it doesn't sound like it, this is not what we're looking for. So I don't see any shortcuts here. This is why I said that I'm not going to explain it here, because in our case, this just doesn't apply. So there are no shortcuts. And it's easy just to see what they are on the example to understand how they work and why we need them. But let's go back to our example. So in our case, there are no shortcuts. That means that we need to just to use the SX property. And let's do exactly that on the form control label. Let's use SX property. Okay, and we need to create a selector. So the first thing that we create, that we use here is ampersand. And ampersand basically means form control label component. The syntax that follows, this is just regular CSX. So what we are trying to do is we are targeting the class which we identified before, right? Which is called MUI form control label dash label. Dash label. Okay, so what it basically means, it's not the MUI syntax over here. This is actually regular CSX syntax. That means we are targeting MUI form control label dash label class, which exists, which is a child on the form control label component. This is what we mean by that. And we are passing it an object with new style properties. So let's change the color to green and font size to 1.5 rem and font family to Verdana. Great. I can see that the style is applied. Awesome. The problem is it's applied only to this particular label. Now I can copy this SX prop to every form control label here, but it's not going to be dry. So the only thing that I really need to do here is just go on like one level up the hierarchy. And like when I look here, it looks like the thing that I need to do is go to the RadioGroup and just change it to RadioGroup. Sometimes, just want to be clear, not in this particular case, but sometimes MUI component will have like some complicated structure inside, a lot of nested elements, and in between this, let's say RadioGroup and form control label, there will be some other elements. That will change how we, I think, target it. But like, and to understand if there are some other elements or not, the thing that we need to do is just, instead of looking here in our code, to look into the DOM structure, because that will give us better view. So let's say here span, we know that the direct parent is label, and if we go one level up, it has classes MUI form group, MUI radio group root. This sounds like our radio group here. So in this particular case, there are no other components in between them, right? So we don't have to do anything specific, but so we can just move this SX prop one level up to the radio group and see what happens. Ooh, hooray! This looks like magic. So yeah, it does seem that we can customize MUI component as much as we want. It just is very, very complicated in my opinion. But I hope I will still remember it in 2 days. And if I don't, I can watch this video.